Now, Donald Trump, the 45th President of the United States, is now well on his way to having as many court appearances as his presidential number. The former Commander-in-Chief has now been indicted for the third time, this time for trying to overthrow the 2020 election that he lost to Joe Biden. Trump now faces in total 78 criminal counts. It is, I know we use this word all the time, an unprecedented moment in the history of world politics for a former US president who's currently seeking to reclaim the White House. Just to give you a bit of an idea, some of the charges include 34 counts of falsifying business records. We knew about these. That could lead to 136 years in prison. 32 counts of retention of national defence information. That could lead to 320 years behind bars. And if convicted on all 78 charges, clearly these are stacking up, then on paper, he'd be imprisoned for 641 years in total. As always, though, Trump maintains his innocence. He says he's never had so much support. Well, joining me to discuss this is the Washington correspondent for Real Political News, Professor Jon-Christopher from Washington, and from LA is the former chair of the Republican Party in California, Thomas Del Baccaro. Very good evening to both of you. Let's start, Jon-Christopher, if we can. In Washington, the repercussions just sort of being felt, I guess. What's the public's knee-jerk reaction to the news? The third time now the president's been indicted.
Well, it depends what you mean by the word public is. The public. If it's his disciples, those who have drank the Trump Kool-Aid, they're thrilled with it, because anytime he shows that he's indicted or he's been up against the wall, they jump on the bandwagon even more. And I think that's the problem for my friend there, Tom, who was the chair of the party in California, and I was with the DNC for many years. Welcome, Tom. It's nice to speak to you this way. And the fact is, my concern is, this is a country where we should have two legitimate parties. And I believe in the party of Lincoln, the party of Ike, the party of Theodore Roosevelt, George H.W. Bush. And I think that we are missing that real political element and the give and take, because Donald Trump has totally magnified his party, and the bright people, the clever people, and I've been reading what Tom's been writing, this is going down the tubes with Donald Trump, the gas bag from Queens. And I grew up a mile away from him in Queens, New York myself. So there you go. That's my opening statement. You're on your way. And great show, Rosie, and your opening was fantastic.
So, Thomas, you've been accused of being one of Donald Trump's disciples. We'll get onto that in a second. But if you are one of his supporters, the charges here are that he tried to overthrow the election that he lost. Very serious on paper. How do you think he responds to this now?
Well, first, let me say that for over a year now, a majority of Americans have thought that the DOJ and the FBI were the personal Gestapo of as that's one of the polling on what the DOJ is doing for Biden. A majority of Americans in all polls think these are politically motivated. The reality is, for Trump, it is true that he has now become more than just a presidential candidate. Now, he is viewed as, if we are allowed this continued two-tier justice system where the Bidens clearly break the law and get away with it, and the DOJ helps them, and they go after Trump for much lesser issues, a majority of Americans are viewing this as a danger point in America. If we allow Biden to win, then we have rubber stamped this process going forward. Trump does have significant... Trump does have significant legal issues. He's got to combat these. But this, as an attorney for 35 years, I can tell you this latest indictment is as faulty as they come. It indicts the First Amendment rights of all Americans. It ignores the fact that Americans have a long history.
Let's let John have his say. Respond to that.
Bring it on, brother. First of all, you using the term Gestapo is really very, very, very
That was in the polling. That was the polling question.
No, I don't even know. May I finish? I will finish. I don't know where you're getting your polls. They seem to be spurious. You have no idea what you're talking about. And Donald Trump committed conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding and conspiracy against the rights of our American citizens. This is not where this country should be going. And Donald Trump and his MAGA GOP, whatever you might call them, acolytes or disciples, must end at the voting booth. And Donald Trump must go to prison. This is what's going to happen.
He must go to prison if he's found guilty.
These
clearly.
are conduct crimes. These are not First Amendment crimes. These are crimes against actionable conduct that he did.
We don't know that he's guilty yet at this point, do we?
Phone calls to individuals in states saying, "I only need 11,000 more votes. Can you get me 11,000 more votes?" He is sickening. We are sick of seeing him. He is a criminal, and he will be, not only he will be indicted, but eventually, in fact, tomorrow he has to show up in court in Washington D.C. and we're all standing waiting online to watch this one.
I mean, I tried to interject that. He hasn't been found guilty of anything yet, has he?
Well, we're having trials.
Of course not. And that's a Rasmussen poll, and it was published in the Daily Mail, so your viewers can easily look it up. Look, here's the reality. The laws that this prosecutor, who was turned over 9-0 the last time he was this aggressive against a politician, turned over 9-0 by the Supreme Court. The laws that he cites have never been used in this fashion. Hillary Clinton has repeatedly said the election was stolen. In 2017, the Democrats said that they wanted to disqualify electors. So in 2004, 32 Democrats tried to challenge the alleged widespread irregularities in Ohio. They had every right to do that. They said the system was broken at that time, and no one said that they didn't have a right to bring that up. No one said their lawyers didn't have a right, like Al Gore in the hanging chads
Thomas,
in 2000.
I just want to ask,
brought up
can you believe you're in a
views.
position where you're defending some of the claims that you're having to? 78 criminal charges of someone who was leading the most powerful country in the world. The optics of this are terrible. If criminal and found guilty, absolutely appalling and serving jail time. This is a real distraction for a party that you've been so deeply involved in. Presumably, you don't want any of this hysteria. What you want is credible, trustworthy politicians leading at the top.
Look, above my shoulder is my book called The Divided Era, and in it I deal with the criminalization of politics. In 2015, they indicted Governor Perry of Texas, and it was eventually thrown out in the courts. What if this country does not stand up to a DOJ, which is clearly... Please, sir, do your best just to be calm.
Get on the brown shirts and start marching. I am appalled by your behavior, sir. I am appalled. And I am appalled by the radicalization and the extreme right wing. And this is what Donald Trump said yesterday. He said this is Nazi tactics. This is Stalinist tactics. And his fools who are actually giving him money and paying him more money. The more indictments he gets, the more money goes into his political coffers. And these poor people who don't have a pot to you-know-what in are giving him all their money. It's pathetic. And you shouldn't be a part of this. You're a bright man. You should start finding someone to be your standard bearer in your Republican Party.
And
we need a two-party system.
You know what brown shirts did in history? They shouted down others and
I am
told them
professor,
that they were
and I know
wrong.
that. I know that.
Okay, well, then you need to go back to the history books.
I think we're getting distracted from the issue at heart here. This is going to be a three-way fight to try and say anything. I'm going to leave it with John if we can. Look, here in the UK, we look upon this and it's such unfamiliar territory to us. You know, Donald Trump seems like a character that we can't quite fathom. Suddenly, the power he managed to wield, and then these charges levelling up against him. How do you think this is going to play out? Because you've hinted at it, that when these charges come up, actually, and Donald Trump said today, I've never been more popular. It's a strategy that for him, whether it's criminal or not, is working. It helps his political career.
They drank the Kool-Aid. They drank it. They're his disciples. They deified him. It's almost as if he's one with them. It's kind of like a holistic. It's a tragedy that's happening in my country. And I think we need two-party system. I've been saying that. We need a strong Republican Party. We need a strong Democratic Party. We need to have a good debate. But Donald Trump has taken it away. And I'm really sad to see a fellow like Tom would fall full force for this ridiculous message from this ridiculous man who will soon be behind bars. I'm afraid to say, because it's not a good thing for our country, especially as we're supposed to be the world leader, and our great allies like Great Britain have always
Clearly, we can't anticipate the outcome of those court cases, but we'll be following them here. I'm going to have to leave it there. Thank you both so much. I fear we could run away with this. Professor Jon-Christopher, Washington correspondent for Real Political News, really appreciate your time. And Thomas Del Baccaro, former chair of the Republican Party in California. Thank you both.